time ago, I started taking pictures of windows. The thing I find compelling about windows is not the frame itself, but what you can see through the frame, beyond the enclosure. So this is the first of 3 juxtapositions. The first picture on the left, it was taken in Kabul at the Old Queen's Palace, and the other picture was taken in Tucson, just west of town, off of the 36th Street trailhead. I think it's interesting to notice that not only are the frames strikingly similar, but what you can see through the frames. So the question I'd like to pose tonight is, can we see beyond the frame? And specifically, can we see beyond the frame on the subject of Afghanistan? I spent the last couple of years in Afghanistan serving in the United States Air Force, and before that, a few years before, I worked there as a civilian volunteer. So it's been my joy to see a very different side of the story that most of us hear and see about Afghanistan. When people think Afghanistan, what do they think? Maybe graveyard of empires, maybe a fumbled counterterrorism or nation-building campaign. Maybe they see a place that's so full of corruption and endless conflict that it couldn't possibly heal. I've seen a very different side to the story, and that is through my relationships with people like you see in these pictures, with women, with activists, educators, kids, artists, soccer players. And the story they tell is very different, because if they could only see the frame, what future would that leave them? And what future would that leave their kids? So I'd like to talk tonight about a vision for the future and a vision for healing that could be shared and that could be connected between citizens in Afghanistan and citizens here in Tucson and in the United States. What if we stopped waiting for our political leaders to feed us a vision? What if we stopped relying on unimaginative editorials to inform us? What would it look like if we could craft and share a vision for healing and for the future between citizens on both sides of the ocean? And I'll tell you what, the kinds of people that you see in these pictures are risking their own lives every day for a future free of the kind of extremism that has wounded both of our nations. And it's through my admiration for them and the inspiration that they've given me, listening to them, that brings me here, and that I can also begin to see beyond the frame. So I believe what we need is something bold and different, something lovely from amid the sharp barbs of pain and conflict. So when I started thinking about this whole issue, I started realizing that really what was missing was this idea of vision. And maybe vision is kind of like those seeds we heard about, that there's so much inside of it, and that once you begin to explore that, it multiplies. And maybe there could be a network of visionaries who shared vision with each other, and therefore, thereby, became a powerful force for change. So I wrote to about a couple dozen Afghan friends and colleagues with this idea. What do you think about a network for vision that would connect citizens? You know, not one of them came back saying, it's already been tried. Not one of them said, nice idea, but it's too late. I got lots of responses, but many of them were like this one. I never believe in defeatism, because there are lots of people who want peace and development in Afghanistan, such as you, me, and other American and Afghan people. What about us? We are members of this society too. Therefore, we can do something. So, we are doing something. A few visionaries And I have formed an organization, a nonprofit called Civil Vision International. Not another organization to do more projects, but one to highlight the visionary work of others. So we want people in Tucson to know about Dr. Shafiq Hamdam, for example. Shafiq is not fazed by Afghanistan hitting rock bottom on Transparency International's list that came out this week in the world for corruption. His organization, the Afghan Anti-Corruption Network, just yesterday hosted 5K races against corruption in 2 cities in Afghanistan, with 4 more to follow over the next few weeks. You can't tell me that Shafiq and the thousands of people that participated in those races and the hundreds of organizations that he's working with buy the narrative that Afghanistan is hopelessly corrupt. Shafiq's vision: an Afghanistan that is no longer fatally threatened by this systemic, endemic, and massive corruption problem that it legitimately faces, an Afghanistan where citizens can be involved in holding their government accountable. That's happening. We also want citizens in Tucson to know the story of my Air Force Academy classmate, Roz Schulte, who was killed in 2009 when her vehicle hit an IED between Kabul and Bagram. I believe we need a vision for the future that honors the sacrifices that people like Roz and her family have made. Is her death senseless? I don't believe so. But I also believe that it's our responsibility to make sure. So there's many, many ways that we can make these connections. Some of them are very simple. You can like something on Facebook. You can follow somebody on Twitter. But we want to do more, and we want to do it locally. And so we're working with visionaries locally, like Mike Holmes of Imagine Greater Tucson. They've been working very hard over the last couple of years to listen to citizens about the vision that they have for the future of this city and this region, and to be able to articulate that in a shared vision. So what if our vision could transcend even regional and even international boundaries? Because this region is a place that understands la frontera, that understands the borderland and the richness, as well as the struggle of being a multicultural and international place on the borderland. I love the phrase, ideas conceived here change minds everywhere. And I believe that can be the case with this idea. I also believe that the ideas that change us most are the ones